Come on. Alright, I think it's finally... There it is. I think I'm starting to get everything. There we go. And give me a couple more minutes, and then we'll be ready to go. Is that starting? There we are. No idea what today's video is going to be about. I got to pull up a bunch of other stuff. Hope everyone is doing well today. We'll get settled. We'll get going. I had to get back over to the other hard drive. I thought about trying to get the green screen working. Was not up for that because I'm not good with that. It drives me nuts, and for some reason I cannot get everything back the way I used to have it. So I don't know if I sat more underneath my table, my desk. I don't know. Doesn't feel the same. And that light doesn't feel the same. Alright, let's see. Have that one open. And that teeth are very, very bad. All the lighting is bad. Okay. Hope everyone's doing well. Disable that. At everyone on live. Send and send. Here comes Spider. So what do we want to talk about today? I know I put in the title because I realized that I haven't really been sharing. Ooh, I don't even know. How is because I just went back and forth between the hard drives and I didn't even check to see if the mic is working well. It feels, well, the visual of the decibels looks like I'm almost constantly in the yellow, and it looks like if I hit any hard consonants, like that H, hard. Yep, it went all the way up to the red. So hopefully it's not too crazy loud, but hopefully it's loud enough too. All right, so let's see. Have that open. Let's see. Communication, understanding the topics. Recursion, regex. Make something you like, so when somebody asks you, you can speak with them. Ooh, that's might be a good one. And then we can maybe do elite code, because I am stuck on the DAG to automate my pipelines with Airflow. But I mean, it's just Python code, so it's not that big of a deal. And that's what Hey Peaky, how are you? Glad to have you here. Same old, just trying to get... So were you not on the stream yesterday? I lose track. All my days blur together. So, alright. Well, I'm glad you're here today. Thanks for stopping by. So let's see. I think I've shared how I got my last job at Walmart was because of a lot of influence. Well, one, knowing Python. I got the job because I knew Python. So I could program and I could solve problems. So the vice president that I met, he was very intrigued in the YouTube channel, and he was British, so he'd always ask, he'd always ask like what videos I made that week, and I told him. I think the one that he really thought was really interesting is had to do some hit radius math on if an object in a circle, like clicking inside a circle, and you had to do the math from the point, the position of the point, and then you were drawing a radius. I think it used turtle and went around, and we drew that. So that was probably the one that he most was intrigued with and wanted to know how I was doing it. So then every so often he would check and ask how the channel was, what videos, and then he'd come back into town. And then all of a sudden, I started getting these phone calls from different numbers that I hadn't seen before. And it was, then I got a text from this vice president, and was asking me if I wanted to apply for a data analyst job. And I was like, oh my God, yes, but do I have to move to Arkansas? And he said, well, no, apply for the job. So I said, okay. So I started looking at it, and it said manager 2. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to manage other data analysts. Well, I mean, I could probably do the data analyst job, but then becoming somebody's boss, I'm like, no. So I talked to who would be then my boss, and what I found interesting was he said, yeah, I looked at your looked at your YouTube channel, and I was like, really? He said, well, yeah, that's what the VP was telling me about, and I was intrigued, and I wanted to see how you'd fit in. So as we're getting off the phone, so that was like a pre-screen, and he goes, and I said, now I know Python. I didn't want to get in. I didn't want to leave my job that I had, that was had been doing for years and was pretty good. So I said, I know. He goes, no, this is a Python job, and this is my, well, funny story now, but at the time was not funny. He said, no, this is a Python job. I go, okay, a Python job. I was like, okay, I can do that. I need to make a video before everybody joins. Let's see. That's not bad. All right. Let's do this one. There we are. Okay. Build something you like. Make something you like. Make something. Build something you like. There we go. Oh, no, speak with passion. There we go. That's what I'm going to title this. Speaking with passion. Hi, everybody. This is Sam with Python Basics. So, all right. So you're in the job market and you're trying to find a job. All right. Well, that's like step 17. So let's go back a minute. So if you're new here, thanks for joining us. This is what we do. We just do one topics at a time, and I'm Sam from Python Basics. That was awful. Hi, everybody. This is Sam with Python Basics. So in today's video, you're going to see that we're going to be talking something about a little bit different. So what do I mean speaking with passion? What in the world do I mean by this? So I've kind of been talking about this a little bit more. So speaking with passion is actually basically a product of building something that you like. So if you're trying to get a job in fill in the blank, you need to have had some sort of experience doing something like that. And programming, it's a little bit easier than other job. It's like, oh, I want to be I want to build, I want to be an architect. So I need to go and design and plan out an entire building. Well, that's a little bit unrealistic. But hey, I want to build features for Google. Okay, well, you can actually go and build features for Google, put it up on GitHub, and start talking about it on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, X, any of these platforms to get this out there. So that's then the previous step. Well, the step before that is you need to have passion and energy and care, because that exudes through what you want to be talking about. Well, then the step before that is doing something that you enjoy building, because I'm seeing young people right now, they're doing something and they're just building what they think people want to see. But they have no interest in it. So the energy comes down, and they just, and then if they get asked a question about it, it's just lackadaisical. So you need to make sure that you're building something that So you need to make sure you're building something that you're very passionate about, because when I was in my pre-interview for my last job, I was able to speak very passionately about the problems that I solved with the things that I had built and everything that I had done up until that point. So then when I got in, so that got me through that hurdle. And then when I got into the interview process, I had done and built several things that I was extremely proud of. So I was able to speak to those very, very passionately, emotionally, and was able to speak in great detail. So all of these things, doing something that you want to be building, is vital, because you're going to have times when you're going to have to build something that you're not interested in, and you're going to have to be practiced and push through and ask good questions and basically trick yourself into caring by getting connected to the people that are working on the project. So you're going to be making it for them and not the project, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to share these ideas and concepts of ensuring that you're building something so you can speak passionately about it, so you can get your foot in the door on that next step of your journey of whatever you're trying to pursue. But we're here talking about programming, data, SQL, data analysis, data engineering, all of these things for problem solving that I am just absolutely engrossed in. See, for me, it doesn't really matter what the problem is. I love these puzzles. I love partnering with business people who have a real problem that they need data to solve. And I'm like, that sounds great. You tell me this is important. It's important. I'm going to dig into it. I'm going to submerge myself into everything about this. And I'm going to help you answer the questions that you need, even if it's a question you don't think is important. And go, hey, that question I don't think is that important. What do you think about this one right here? And you just begin to form this symbiotic relationship with these individuals who do not have a technical background, and that's where you come in. So just wanted to throw out a quick video on this today, but I hope everyone is doing well. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you're hitting the notification bell. Most important, there is a Discord link down below. Make sure you're joining that link so you can get the help that you need and deserve with whatever part of your journey you're on and wherever you want to be. But as always, thank you everyone for watching. Stay tuned, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone. All right. I think the lighting on that was pretty good. Teeth were medium. Hope everyone's well. Let's see who all is still here. No. Nope. I'm still, Pete Beaky, I'm still looking. No, I've had some phone calls, and I wouldn't even say interview, but it hadn't gotten that far. But I've been out. Actually, had an interesting Friday. A friend of my dad's reached out to me and said that they were having a cookout at the bank, and I got to go meet quite a few people. So that was very interesting. I know this sounds odd, but I'm a complete introvert. Going to places and going and being around people, that is very challenging for me to do. Okay. I let me do something real quick. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Alrighty. Oh, that's. I was like, what is going on Discord? What messages am I missing? But what it was funny is it was the notification bot that Cardinal has put on the channel. And and I was like, wait a second, because I'm also on for the boot camp that I'm in. They also have a server that I'm a part of. So, but let's see. All right, so where did I leave off? All right. Sorry, my phone is very busy today apparently. So where did I leave off? Oh, I was talking about the job. So I guess I passed the pre-screen. Oh, and it was around Christmas time. So I applied for the job on like Christmas Eve. And then I didn't hear anything for weeks and weeks. And I was like, okay. So it was, yeah. So how about we go back? So I applied for the job. It was 3 or 4 weeks before I heard anything. And then it all sped up. So then I got the pre-screen from my future boss. And he said, all right, I want you to talk to the recruiter. They're going to ask you some questions and schedule the interview. And I was like, okay. And that got scheduled, and it was just one interview. That was like on a Monday. Got everything scheduled around. That was either a Wednesday or a Thursday that I got interviewed. And then I actually found out that Friday from the VP. He messaged me on LinkedIn. I don't think I told anybody this, but I got messaged I found out from him, and had heard a little bit chatter from my general manager and my boss at the building. They're like, hey, you may want to be prepared for Sam to leave. That's what he told. And I was like, really? Because I haven't heard anything, and I'm not thinking. And then I got the message from the VP. Then Monday I got the call from my boss, and he's like, well, how'd you think you did? I said, well, I knew I had the job. So I was like, I think I did pretty good, but I didn't ever tell him because I didn't want to. Because when my boss called me, my future boss, I said, how do you know? I'll keep names out of it. How do you know the VP? Oh, he's my boss. I was like, oh, okay. Well, what what it's turning out to be was that basically everybody acted coy and everything, but I do wonder how much the VP's thumb was on the scale, because the position had been open for 2 months and they couldn't fill it because nobody knew Python and SQL and wanted to move to Bentonville, so that they just opened it and reopened it internally. So Walmart does it, I think, like most companies do. You open it up internally first, and then if you can't get a candidate, then you open it up to outside. So I get interviewed, I get the job offer, I start getting, and of course, in large companies, things never went well the first few weeks. All of my email got purged because it was supposed to get moved over. But there was a group of us that, and I had things saved in my email that I wished I could have saved. It was notes from old coworkers, old bosses, even things that I like, things that I did well, things that I didn't do well. So, yeah, it was that was probably disheartening. And I actually, funny thing is, I found my 20-year badge last night when I was moving some cushions around. So I made everybody, always look at my 20-year badge, because there weren't a lot of us floating around. All right, so I get the job, and my boss is like, "Hey, I want you to start connecting with your predecessor." And I was like, okay. So we start having all these meetings, and it just becomes very apparent very quickly that this is not a Python job. This is a SQL job. And I'm starting to freak out heavily. And I'm getting, I'm ordering SQL books, and I'm reading them. I'm coming up to speed. And now I also get, now I defaulted to CTE tables, or it's not CTE tables. I need to really remember CTE. I don't want to hit search. I want to remember. I can't remember. Common table expression. I'm going to need to commit that to memory before I get a freaking interview. All right. So I was doing this, and also I forget who was here yesterday or the day before talking about the book that I got from Renee, the SQL for Data Scientists. That book is fantastic. So if you want to, and it's written with like a little bit of programming. So if you're coming from Python and you're wanting to get really good at SQL, and I would highly suggest that book. I think I've put links in other places, but highly recommend that. So all right, so I started doing that, and one of our first challenges was I got hired to the team, and we were in version 2 of this algorithm for defects for all of the cases that come through Walmart. And we're wanting to enhance it and capture these other defects. So I get asked to sit down with the project manager, the engineering team, a couple of directors, and collect requirements for them. Thank God I was partnered with a very, very smart project manager, and she held my hand pretty immensely through the first few months. So that was starting in February. And I recorded some videos of me because I wanted to. Hey, Anonymous, how are you? I'm well. Good evening to you. So you're on the other side of the globe. It is morning here where I am. So, but good evening to you. You're new to that channel? Well, thank you for joining us. So today is kind of like story time, and because I think I was burning everybody out with oh, I appreciate it. So we're working on changing and really drilling down into not only the case quantities but sub-defects. So no worries. So the issue with V2 to V3, version 2 to version 3, was we had 3 buckets here. We had 3 buckets, and it was we'll do this. Let me see if it was barcode, packaging, and basically, could we find it? So that was a very interesting one. But where it really came to be, and because we were throwing these all into this looks like a TV or a board. Here were the defects. This level. But where that was version 2. But then what we needed to do is we needed to go to version 3, and a whole list of sub-defects needed to begin to get captured. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And also the implementation of, because right now, so the way that Walmart was doing this is it was a little inconsistent because we were using automation and scanning the barcodes. So it was this high velocity scanner, and we were finding out that there was some discrepancy between the information. So we had vendors that were tracking the data, scanning the data, moving it all the way through all of the entire process. And of course it wasn't being transmitted holistically. Oh, and then also, oh my God, and then 3 pictures. I completely forgot about the picture one. We'll talk about that in a second. Oh my God, this was awful. This one right here, this took me like 2 weeks to figure out if we had 3 pictures, because it was in a nested, I guess it wasn't an array, and I didn't even know it was in an array. All right, so we'll talk about the 3 pictures in a minute, because if it didn't have 3 pictures, it automatically became a pass, because we had to give, that looks like PAF. If it didn't have 3 pictures, it passed. Because if the vendor couldn't come and see what was wrong, we basically didn't have proof. So if you didn't have pictures, you automatically passed. You did not get fined. But all right. So then what we were doing, I don't even know how the lighting here is. It's not good. Whoa, I just hit everything on my microphone, so I apologize. So all right. So let's go back. So we were doing the sub defect. My posture's bad today. I apologize. So we had to go from just defects to sub defects because there were so many things that went into it. Everybody said, And when I really learned about patience and what an analyst does and what just a data person does, you have got to understand that you're constantly on call to solve problems and answer, kind of be a guide. So it's almost like I don't know this area, but the rules of following water, and if I see water, that means if I see water running, that means it's downhill. If I see a lake, if I see very small stones, that meant water once ran through here. I mean, all of these things of signs. So you were to get signs and notice patterns. So I was the first one to notice that when this one failed, this one automatically failed. So we didn't have to even test for this anymore. So that sped up that. So I began to remove queries because this was actually dependent on here, but nobody had noticed it before. So that was really interesting. So basically then when you could have this and this not fail, but if this failed, this automatically failed. It was like a aha moment, but everybody was swimming around in this stuff and you couldn't see it. It's the old adage about you couldn't see the forest through the trees. And I still wrap my head around that one. I'm just curious what IDE you use. You talking about this right here? So this is Spider through Anaconda. But don't get, or are you talking about this? This is just paint. I'm not sure. I just want to make sure that Peaky, I know what you're, so yeah. All right. So back to this. So once I started to break out the sub defects, what was very interesting is, that one. Which one? The light one or the dark one? Sorry, Peaky. I don't know how much of a delay there is. The white or the dark? So, all right. So then I had to break out, and then I'll talk about the nomenclature, which I think that word is an awful word because we changed the nomenclature and the naming. And then we had to go back and run. So the pipelines that I built, the dark one, yeah, this is Spider. So, and it's from Anaconda. I like it because it has a lot of already preloaded environments. So it has a lot already in here, and where that's the only reason. But if you're really new at Python, you do not need a very complex editor. You can do all of these things with any of this right here. Let's see, 12. I want to see something. Delete this shortcut. Python idle. There we are. Here, I'll show you this. Where'd it go? I'm back. I got spoiled all weekend. I was on the fast hard drive. You can do so many things. You can do so many things with here and just install them on pip. All right. So, all right, we're back. We're back to here. So the sub defects. So it comes down from on high about the sub defects because the vendors are like, it's the Pareto effect. Let's just fix one thing. Let's just get one thing. Yep. You use VS Code? Okay. I don't think I've used that before. Actually, I'm back using Visual Studio with the boot camp that I'm in. All right. So the sub defects. So this becomes, gosh, I've forgotten all the things. I need to rewrite all this stuff down of everything that I had to do. So the pipelines that I'm building for this that are flowing back through, sir. I'm gonna. No, because it's behind a paywall. And it's a homework assignment. So you could. I'm trying to think. Go download. You'd be able to do that exact same thing with dbeaver. Here. We can do that right now. Let's do that. So go download dbeaver and then download the and we can actually go over what you could do for a slowly changing design. And I will show you. So download dbeaver because this is one of the tools that I used. And let's see. Yep. dbeaver, close. And the customer, you'd be able to do this with customer or employee. So you'd be able to go and create a slowly changing table with the orders and be able to track when they ordered, and then did they order this week. So you can do that exact same assignment with that. So you could start that here, and you won't need that, because what it is, so the slowly changing design is, I think I used the example with being in a school, and then also one of the other ones that I was reading about in one of my other books that I have is somebody at a zip code or an address. So if somebody's moving, you're constantly having that record be there, and they're there until they're not there, and then you need to then update it. And sure, sir, I will give a try. It will really test my skills on the same. So yes, everything. And if you are new to the channel, I hope you've heard me say this. I'm doing this all in real time. I was doing, which is humorous, funny, not funny, that I was doing data engineering, kind of light. I was doing it with tools that maybe weren't supposed to be designed to be doing it, but I was doing it none the same. I was building the backend tables for our internal applications. I was feeding into the pipelines for our two analysts that were on our team. I was automating anything that could be automated. Any task that somebody was doing repeatedly, they were sent to me, and I figured out a way to automate it. And I either set triggers in place for if something happened, something changed. Dataiku was actually very good about that, where you give it a table and you just have it look at it, and if that table changes, then it will initiate whatever job task you have at hand, and then can write to basically any tables you can imagine. Some we wrote back to GCP tables, Google BigQuery, or our own internal Azure tables, which was extremely cool because we had a lot of control over those. And creating, appending, those are some of the coolest things that I think I've done. So, all right, how about we go back? You work on dbeaver, getting it installed, and find an invoice and create something of go find here's an assignment. Create a slowly changing design of if a customer was active from week to week. There you go. And then the gaps of week to week. Oh, absolutely. Learning is, I think learning, and I don't know. I go back doing anything new, because if you think about it, everything that everyone is doing at some point. I've really been spending a lot of time on this, and doing this in parallel with jiu-jitsu is ridiculous. And I know it's probably getting a little old. Dax, what's up? How are you doing? So I basically have two parallel tracks of sheer terror. Terror during the day, learning new skills. Sheer terror at night, learning new skills, and extremely physically discomfortable. But so one is extremely emotionally uncomfortable during the day and in the morning, and the other is physically distressing and uncomfortable, but also mentally and emotionally. But I would also say that so the challenges that I have at jiu-jitsu are not as bad as the challenges that I have with the skills that I'm acquiring with data engineering. And I think that is very, very, I think that speaks volumes. And I think that should really be analyzed by anyone in here who's doing something that is very uncomfortable or doing something that's very challenging. And just let that sit and percolate for a minute. All right, but back to this sub-defect problem that we had. So we had sub-defects that rolled up into defects. So I had a bucket. At a bucket. So I had to read through. Still carry strengths from wrestling in high school. Really? Okay, yes. Oh my gosh. So the wrestlers at jiu-jitsu, they're like, oh, I've never done jiu-jitsu before. Yeah, but aren't you a wrestler? Yeah. So, no. So I try to gauge new people, because I've only been doing this, coming up on a year and a half, and it's crazy the difference between a year and somebody who's brand new. I mean, exponentially new. But then, so I try to gauge, being older, I try to gauge how much they know, or not to be flat out and just destroy them like some people have done and do. But then they say that they know wrestling. I'm like, okay, so we're going to go about this a little bit different. But yes, the wrestlers that come in, they have an extreme advantage. There is one gentleman, he is a little bit older than me. He's 64, 65. I guess he's 18 years older than me. He is tough, and he's little, but do not underestimate him. He will wear you out. And his pressure on you is awful, and you just want it to end, and you're just exhausted all the time because that's the thing about jiu-jitsu is containment and pressure, because you wear somebody out when you have pressure on them. So, all right, I digress. So we had these buckets. So I was looking for these terms because the scanners from our vendors, they would try to process and give us outputs, and they would give us JSON files. So then that vendor with the scan would then hand it off to another vendor and would try to tweak it a little bit for us, just because the sheer volume, because we were actually trying to train the scanners, like basically a vision software and try to get away from barcodes, but to take snapshots, to take pictures, and train some AI to let it learn, hey, I don't see 2 labels on here or 2 barcodes. So that's a fail. And then if the barcode didn't match, that was a fail, but then it fell into these buckets. So where it really came to pass. So we're going to talk about the pictures in a minute. Let's go back to the main issue going. So V2 was, if it failed, it failed. Well, that was way too inconsistent. So the 2 things that went from V2 to V3 that I took over. So I came right here as V2 and V3 were transitioning. So what this had to do, I don't know how much I can say because I signed an agreement. So let me think about this. I can say it this way. All the buildings. You can probably do some research and find out how many buildings Walmart has. So this is where so you had all the buildings, then you had in a building and a day. So this is where it became very interesting. So the original one was, I think it was like some crazy rolling average. We weren't ever able to find the documentation because everybody on the team was just churning. The churn on the team was unbelievably high. It actually scared me when I first started. I was like, nobody stays on this team. So what had to happen is it was decided that we weren't going to do, it didn't have to fail on all the buildings on that day. So it just had to be in that building, one building, 100%. So all the items that came through that day had to fail in that building that day. Now, where it became very interesting, and I called this out pretty early on. Was it 6? Or was it 7? Because it wasn't quite enough. So we had, I think it was 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5, 6, 7. So each case had a scan ID. And the vendors could come and look at down to the granular level. Now, 1 million cases a week in a Walmart building is nothing. I want you to look at this. So in our system, and I called this out and I was trying to get it fixed before I left, all we needed to do was add a couple more zeros, and this data could be searchable for a year. But what was happening is this is only 10 million cases. So we began reusing scanner IDs every, hang on, I can't talk about that. I was going to say something. Okay. We were going to begin reusing on average, the scan ID started coming back up about every 9 days. It would recycle. So your historical data began to go away. And this is one of those things that I call it, you don't think about it till you think about it. But, so I pointed that out. That was a big aha. So what we did is, in the meantime, we concatenated so we wouldn't have to change like all the technology. So what we did, and so what I came up with is we concatenated scan ID. So basically we made a unique identifier without having to change everything. So then we added I added the DC. So that's 4 more numbers. And then the date. I want that down here. Sorry, I'm about to knock over my drink. And I got an itch. And the date. So we kind of threw against the probability. Still don't want that down there. I want that up here. So the probability of having the exact set, well, actually with the date it's impossible. So now I remember. So I started with the scan ID and the DC, and then I started looking at it, and you could then statistically have the same scan ID, and you could differentiate between the gaps of how many days, because in the building, on average, a lot of cases go through Walmart buildings. Let me stay completely away from this. You'd be able to go and do the math and look up how many cases, but it is a lot. Couple 100,000 cases through each Walmart building a day. So you start eating up these scan IDs pretty quick. And especially, it wasn't each building had a scan ID. It was the entire network had a scan ID. So you'd be through this in 7 or 8 days. 9 days if things were slow. And then you'd actually begin to see those patterns. So when I added the DC, that elongated a little bit. But then I go, well, wait a second. We're going to be recycling this. And then if you begin to pull up scan IDs, you'd be like, all right, so it wasn't in that window, in this window. But then when I once added the date, so I added another column with a concatenation between these 3, and it became very, very unique. And there was no way that you were going to have, of course, the date is extremely unique, but the scan ID and the DC. But those type of things, when you sit down and think about what is my problem here and uniqueness. So that was an ongoing project that finally dawned on me. But writing this where it was 100% fails in a building, and then if all of those failed, then you were to go and back and flag all of those charges. Now, here's where this became very interesting. Sometimes, I can say this. Sometimes if it's not scanned properly, let's get rid of this. We're going to do that right there. Delete. There we go. Okay, that went better. All right. So you had to be really, really careful because Walmart is so big and fast, you have these little conveyor lines, and they could be, the stuff goes through, and if it's not picked up, it's going to circle back around for a variety of reasons. Well, it also took a minute for me to realize that the same bad case could come through a couple of times. And then if a good case came through, so the way that I had to design this is I had to be very, very careful and make sure that the same type item was being accounted for, and I wasn't missing any good items and had the bad items overcounting. So I don't really remember what I did, but you can get false positives. So when you're having scan data, especially dealing with scan data and the possibility of duplicate information, because I never got a good answer of how it knew that it identified a case with the scan ID. I had some theories, but I never got, because I went to a few buildings and I saw, and I think I deduced how we felt comfortable about it, but I never got a really, really solid 100% answer. So I had to take it. You had to take the information at its face value. So I assumed I had to. You have to pick a position where you need to trust, because and then you base all of, as long as you're consistent. If you're consistently right or you're consistently wrong. So if you're humanly stopwatching something and you're constantly hitting your stopwatch, well, your human delay is going to be pretty consistent. So if you think about that, if I'm doing it the same way and I have some inconsistencies coming in, but I'm measuring those inconsistencies consistently, then I'm going to be off the same amount, positive or negative. So I took the scanned ID at face value. So then what I had to do is I had to figure out a way to remove because it could go through. Oh, and then we had scan tunnels. That was it. Because the buildings are so large, there's multiple scan tunnels. So I gave a scan, because you also find out, you'd also be given the location of the building in which it got scanned. So I began to weave those things into it, and that made it even more unique. And then I was able to track so that then if that scan ID showed up at another location at another time, that got kicked out. And I did the old famous, if it was bad, it got 1. If it was good, it got 0. So then what I did is I removed all duplicates. I had all kinds of ways to find out if it was a duplicate or not. So then I had total cases for the day for that item in that building. All right, that doesn't look like total. So we're going to go back. We're going to spell total so we can read. So this was one of my first cool ahas. So I had the total cases for the day in that building on that day. So I knew that number X. Then I would begin to sum up all of our defects. And if these equaled each other, then that item for that vendor at that day in that building got an error. And it was just a really simple flag, and then I summed it up. So I counted the cases, and then I summed this up. Because the cases would go through, I knew how many distinct cases I had because I took care of all that over here. And then also, then I began to look and see, okay, how many of those distinct actually had, as a non-user, could you summarize the thing that will happen in Walmart and the problem statement that we look to address? Apologies. As a non-U.S. resident. What I guess, and the problem statement we are looking to address. Oh, okay. Yeah. So the reason where this all came from is in any large organization, you lose focus on anything and you get distracted. And what was happening is Walmart came out of the 70s and 80s, and we were big, and just we were making a bunch of money on accident. So we didn't have to be efficient. And then we were so focused on getting the product on the shelf so the customer could get it, we let a lot of things, we lowered standards. So we lowered standards. So what was happening is we had allowed our vendors to lower the standards so much that they were sending us garbage type of packaging, the wrong stuff. That was, I mean, there were some cases where it was just basically lying, where they would say, yeah, we sent you 100,000 red shirts and 100,000 blue shirts. But what it was really 150,000 red shirts and 50,000 blue shirts. And we would sign the purchase order, the invoice, which is a legally binding document, but it wouldn't be that stuff in the boxes. I mean, it was really that bad. And then, so that got better. And then, because everything at Walmart is speed and efficiency. Well, then we started looking at the type of packaging and the information. The information on the outside of the box is vital for the employees in the distribution center, which I spent 20 years, to bring it in, identify it as quickly as possible, label it, get it in the shelving so that it can get in the proper slot so that it can be order filled and then got put on the truck and then get to the shelf. Because it's the right product at the right time, the perfect case, perfect time, perfect product. That's the mantra. So what it was is we were getting garbage from our vendors, our suppliers, and we were wasting tens of millions of dollars a year on labor trying to figure out what this stuff was. We would get sent stuff that we didn't ask for. We would get the human error that what was a mistake is understood, but it was way past human error. It was we got to unload 100 of these pallets. Let's just put extra stuff on the truck. Walmart will take it. I mean, it was that well known. There were videos of you would get other competitors of Walmart. The pallets would be perfect. Everything would be great. And then you'd have stuff over there. Hey, what's that over there? Oh, that's Walmart stuff. They'll take it. So we didn't think investing in the money and making sure the packaging was worth it, where our competitors had been doing it and not spending all this money. So we stood up this program to find these things like this. And what was happening is, don't think I can talk about that. We were able to prove how much we were spending on fixing all these mistakes. So then we went back to the vendors and said, hey, this is how much it's going to cost when you do this. Now, we're not going to charge you all of that. We're going to charge you 50% of it. So whenever this happens, and it goes into a new agreement every time you enter into agreements with Walmart, there's contracts. Hey, going forward, if this happens, you're going to be subject to a charge. Oh, okay. And then they start getting the bills and they're like, whoa, wait a second. Hey, buddy. I mean, it was like, no, we asked you to fix this for years. And you said, yeah. Well, now we have a legally binding contract here. And here is the money you owe us. Hey, pal. So then, because we're not interested in the money, even though it was a lot of money, a lot. Think about a number that you're thinking about and then multiply it by a lot. And because I don't think I can divulge that. I think I would open myself up to, I don't want to do that. But a lot of money. So then what we would do is we would sit down with the vendors. My boss's boss was brilliant. She would go into the DCs and she would know who she was going to talk to, and she'd go find one of their boxes. And she would bring it in and they're like, we don't think that we have that much of a problem. And she puts this box down, and it would happen every so often. It is a box with nothing on it. And it's like, how am I supposed to receive this? 8 times a lot equals error. That's funny. Well, that's actually one of the slogans that you heard a lot at Walmart. A small number times a really large number is a really large number. there have been articles about this, so I can close to infinity, LOL. So I will tell you this because it has been publicized. So Walmart's power bill is $1 billion a year. So all right, one of the brilliant ideas to save was the $1 billion challenge. So an associate, and this is why Sam, the founder of Walmart, was so obsessed with listening to the associates, because they're on the ground, they're doing all the work, and that's what I hated, that I got so far away from it. But so Walmart's not open 24 hours because it wasn't worth the time and energy. We thought it was a convenience, but there weren't very many shoppers. But we left the televisions on all night. Store's not occupied, but we left televisions on. And this one associate goes, "Hey, if we're closing the store, should we turn off all the TVs?" And then somebody goes, wait a second, we're not turning the TVs off? So they start doing the math. Yeah, it was like $15 million a year in a power savings from turning off all in any electronics in the stores while the stores were closed. But one of the other ones that I was obsessed with when I was back at the DC was eggs. Walmart sends out a lot of eggs. You have no idea how many eggs goes through a Walmart store until you go and see it. Same thing with sugar and flour. We were getting, when I was unloading 20 years ago, we would get 3 to 4 trucks a day of sugar. So to give you an idea, a pallet of sugar, depending on the size, was between 2,200 and 2,500 pounds. So a little over a ton. And you would get, you would have 20, depending on the size of the trailer, between 26 and 30 pallets of sugar on one trailer. And we would get those every day. We would get those every single day. And because we just sent it out all the time. And that's not during holiday season. So, all right. So I'm way off into the weeds. So let's get back to this problem, right? Oh, the pictures. Okay, so that was another one that was mind-boggling to me, and I was like, oh, I have no idea. how I'm going to do this. So I just kept swimming around in the data. So I had an array. There's a column right here. What's JPEG? Yeah, okay. I haven't seen a JPEG file in a while, I guess. There we go. All right. So this was nobody cared, but I loved it. So what I did is I had to we had to throw out everything that didn't have an image. So where it got interesting is I had to push this further up the pipeline. So if we received, what is that to? So if we received 20 cases that day, but only 17 had 3 pictures, because that was the agreement with the vendors, that they could come and look and see. So only 17. So I had to throw out 3 of these. So then I really only had 17. So for that day, the vendor could only get charged for 17 cases. But now, if any of these 17 passed, then the whole batch passed. Because you could have, so the way that it got decided upon is basically if one passed, that meant we could have false negatives on the rest. It was like the super tie went to the runner. I don't know if that's a term in cricket, but it's a term in baseball. So if if the ball and the I think that's still the rule in baseball. I haven't watched baseball, and the World Series just ended. But if the ball and the runner get to the bag, they get to the base at the same time, the runner is safe. For they get the benefit of the doubt. Tie goes to the runner. All right. Innocent till proven guilty. So we didn't assume we'd have a false positive. We assumed you had 16 false negatives. So it seemed a little bit of an overkill, but that was what the lawyers sorry, my daughter is no, a daughter. So there's trade-offs from trade-offs from boys and girls. They both have their pluses and they both have their minuses. All right. So, and then we'll go back to how I had to do it. So I can't quite remember, but yeah. So I had more of this. So as this evolved, I think this may have been V4 because I did V3. I did V4. I did V5 because V4 was this and V5. Wow, I can't remember. I don't even know, and I have no access to any of that other stuff. So the JPEGs. So all right. So what was happening is in this array. It was very, very cool. It was, and I didn't understand what it was at the time, but now I do. But I got it to, it was no, it was not an array. It was a concatenated string. So what I did, let's select this and get this going. No, I don't want to get rid of that. I want to do this. Let's see it here. And delete. So what I did is it was very cool. So basically, I added. What did I do? I forget what I added in there, but then I counted. Did I add Walmart? So I replaced. I just counted JPEGs. So in the URL, so it was concatenated. It was because you could actually you could download the query, and it had a URL and HTTP link, and you could then the vendor would be able to go and look at the image and see. But if it didn't have 3, we threw it out too. So what I did is I actually created an array, or I created a column that counted the number of JPEGs, because that was, so I need to go back and see but yeah, now I'm more annoyed that I can't remember what I did, but I counted the JPEGs. I want to say that maybe I reduced, and I saw the difference between the length. I can't remember, but I think I would just count JPEGs now. But I differentiated in between, and then if it was, and then I filtered. Yeah. So I'd have 3. Sometimes it'd be 4, and if you'd have a really good. If like everything was perfect and it came through at the right time, because it would time it and take these photographs. So then if it was 2 and 1, at first I was like, because I heard 3 pictures, and then somebody was saying, no, it can be 3 or more, and I was like, that would have been good information. So basically it was, if anything, if it was less than 3, I kicked it out. But yeah, so what I did is in that column, I counted the times that JPEG was of present in a string. Okay, what did I? Okay, SQL count. Count occurrences. SQL occurrence count. Was that it? And then I've been seeing count 1, and I need to do some research. I'm on Stack Overflow. I saw an interesting chart the other day that uses of, since ChatGPT has come out, the uses of Stack Overflow are like Stack Overflow is going away, which I don't hate, because every time I've gone to Stack Overflow and asked a question, the amount of hate and sarcasm and just absolute rudeness that I used to get, it was like, oh my God, did you even try to look or read? You're so stupid. And I'm like, wow, everyone, thank you so much for the help. Count case, coalesce. All right, I'll do that later. Let's see. Anybody have any questions so far about everything that I've been talking about? How long have we been on today? We've been on 1 hour and 17 minutes. That's not bad. I think the color is probably pretty okay. All right. Let's see. What else? Oh, so that was... Now it looks bad. All right, so that was the first... All of that was the first 3 months. And I recorded some videos so I could capture it, so I could go back. I looked so depressed because I was extremely overwhelmed. But I didn't remember. I hadn't been overwhelmed in a while. And I guess that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make, or get everyone to wrap their head around. Now, I don't know. That's all I know, is being overwhelmed or uncomfortable or out of my element. That's why I did that live stream the other day. That's why I went to the cookout on Friday. That's why I joined that boot camp. That's why I do these live streams. All of these things are so uncomfortable. I mean, I kind of think about that. There are people on the other end, and then this is out in the internet, but I also kind of don't. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Let's see. You're very welcome. So I don't know how many people... I don't know. I watch people go into... They want to go into programming because they think they want to go into programming, or they think they have to go into programming. It's kind of like when people want to move. I need to move. Well, why? I mean, if you think moving is going to do something for you, you're still going to be there. So typically, people think... I mean, now if you're moving to get to something specific, if you're moving just to be moving, I don't know. But it's like, hey, this... Like when my parents moved, they moved because there was a business. There's an old adage, are you running from something or are you running to something? And if you're not moving, hey, I'm moving for this job. Okay, you're going to something. If you're just like, we need to move. Why do we need to move? Because in a certain length of time, everything will be back to the exact same thing that you're trying to avoid, get different, whatever, and everything will be and the only thing that you'll think of is, oh, we need to move again. So that's kind of been on my mind. So, because I've been reading these posts on LinkedIn that people are quitting their job. The Great Resignation was actually that was why my job, the last job I had, got opened up, was because the young lady, she just wanted to. I was like, "Oh, are you taking a new job?" No. And it was, I mean, burnout. I think burnout is real. I'm not beating that down, but I guess what my thing is in my growing up and in my experience with, then that means you didn't. It almost means like you shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. Is that you didn't love what you were going to do anyway, and you just were guessing things. And I guess I see that when people are jumping on here and wanting to build. Hey, we should build this. We should build this. Well, why? Why should we? And I did that all the time. I remember this talk. I was working with my parents, and I wanted to get a bunch of new computers. I thought it was going to be super cool, and my dad just kept saying no. And he's like, "All right." So he was going to try to help me. He goes, "Okay, let's talk about it tonight. After work, we'll get everything around, and let's sit down." And he goes, "All right, how much is everything going to cost?" And I was like, "It's going to be $12,000. This is 20-something years ago. So think about the type of money that would be. I mean, a lot of money." And he goes, "Okay. How much money will that make or save the business?" And I didn't have an answer. And the answer was probably none. And he goes, "That's why we're not going to do it." And I completely understood then. And that epiphany, I've never forgotten that. And I was 21-ish. So we're talking 25 years ago, 26 years ago, 27 years ago, possibly. And I've never forgotten that. So why? You have to employ why back to whatever you want to do. What benefit am I going to get? All right. Sir, in case, what would you be your piece of advice to people who are feeling that burnouts? And is there any way to find exact thing that she needs to be looking? This is a awful answer, but this is very true. So you have to really dive into why are you burned out? What burned you out? Were you overworking, or were you in the book Switch, emotional energy, or were you using so much emotion? Are you burnt out because you're emotionally drained because you were making yourself do this work? I love this type of work because I love solving problems. Mine is very generic. I love working with business partners to solve their problems, to be more efficient. I come from small business where every dollar mattered. If the guy cut too much off, I mean, we lived very, very sparsely when I was growing up. When my parents first owned their business, we didn't do anything. We didn't go anywhere. We stayed there, and I was with them at work, in a weld shop, in a machine shop, watching all these guys work. And I knew that was important, and we had to be there. But all right, so back to the burnout. So you got to figure out why you're burned out. And so you just have to start, but you have a feedback loop. You've got to take the feedback loop. So things around you are telling you these things. You've got to hear them and listen. You got to ask why. So why am I doing what I'm doing? Okay. So then why am I tired from doing what I'm doing? Why? You've got to ask. I learned very early on, and I noticed it as a kid, that adults parents, adults, teachers hated the question why. And it's not that the kid kept asking incessantly. They didn't have an answer. And it was emotionally frustrating. And then just stop asking questions. A kid wants to know why. Next time you're around, watch a kid. The kid's going to go, why? And it's not to ask, love to work with business partners, although I bet there are potential employees looking for that person. I hope so. That's what Dax, you're going to scold me, but all right. So the whole resume thing is a game, right? And I suck at games. I don't play the game. When I was in the dating world, I sucked at dating. I was so glad I met my wife because I was not good at it. But do you know, Dax, that I've been applying for data engineers, and basically since I was a data engineer, I still wrote that I was a data analyst on my job title. So I finally changed that, so at least maybe I can start getting interviews. But yeah, Anonymous, that's what I love to do, and it's taken me. Now I'm 47, so I don't know how old you are, Anonymous, but being young sucks. You get beat up a lot. I felt awful for 20 years. I was depressed is a strong word, but I was beat down for a long time. Because I had no path. I was taking care of my kids. I was going to work on the weekends. I was getting by. And I figured that I would be at the distribution center for the rest of my life. I didn't know if I was ever going to get promoted because I had been turned down for a promotion. No, not even turned down, not interviewed for a promotion for 53. So you got 5 years on me. So you're probably better. Well, I don't know. You said you ended up being a good fit on for the job you had, and that's also the trick. But Anonymous, back to what you were talking about being burnt out. So I was burnt out and I was talking to my younger son, the middle one, that I was unhappy where I was. So he remembers an unhappy childhood because I was unhappy, and I was unhappy because of where I was. I was unhappy because I was better. I had more to offer than the job that I had. Let's say that way. And my watch is telling me I need to get up. I'm being lazy. Wish there was a way that I could wear my watch while I was doing jiu-jitsu, and it wouldn't think I was so lazy. So the burnout is, I believe, here we go. I believe it is an emotional mismatch where you're forcing yourself, but I also made a career switch like you did. That's awesome. Yeah. So see, I mean, I would have never, I kept going, do I want to write? I didn't even know. Well, one, I didn't even know really what data engineering was. I thought it was just programming. So, I mean, building these pipelines and then better skilled visualization experts can take the data that I'm making and turn it into something cool to then help business-minded individuals make decisions. But the problem with the burnout, I feel this is me throwing stuff against the wall, but I feel very confident. Burnout is more tied to you're making yourself do something. You're taking the emotional energy to make yourself do something that you really have zero interest in doing. So you can read the book Switch. There's a chapter in there about emotional energy. And there's only so much emotional energy during the day. And what it was is there was two groups, a control and basically the happy group. And I think they had to eat either an avocado or it wasn't an onion, but it was more of an unpleasant vegetable. Oh, a rutabaga. That was it. Just a raw rutabaga. Well, one group had to eat as many rutabagas as they could. The other group got to eat cookies first. And what the point was is the group that got to eat the cookies first, they had a higher level. Their emotional energy tank was more full than the control group. Let's see. Book switch. Switch. How to change things. Author Chip and Dan Heath. Yeah, that I don't like reading because I can't sit that long. But I sit down and I just read 2 pages every night of these books that my kids got me. And it emotionally energy building up, doing that, being consistent. And also, if you're here, you probably have a little bit of ADHD because we're all drawn together. Consistency is your friend. Inconsistency is your mortal enemy. If you do not have a rigid schedule, your subconscious will eat you alive. If you haven't heard me talk about the one gentleman, so we think we're non-creative. I actually argue that we're extremely creative. It just comes out in a different way. So there was this writer. He eats the exact same thing all 3 meals. So he doesn't take any energy from his creative bucket. He leaves all that over there so he doesn't have to come up, what do I want to have for dinner tonight? We think that we're not using any of our energy doing that. We are. We're drawing. We have so much energy during the day. We have a limited amount of energy. That is an awful circle. That is okay, I'm a cheat. Cheated. Okay. All right. So we have so much energy throughout the day. And any decision making or choices we have to make, that's a good one. It slides. Yeah. Let's do that. Okay. Here. Let's see if can I make this straight? Ooh, that's straight down. Okay, that's good. So, all right. So anytime we start to make a decision or think about something, we're eating up the rest of our energy. All right? But if we are consistent and we do the exact same thing every single time of the day, we keep this at its slot. We keep it in its place. But when we are inconsistent, or we go, oh, wait a minute. If we do, oh, wait a minute, this thing is sliding all the way around over here. Our job, this is what we can control. We can control if we're consistent or not. We can make a choice. We can't control anything else, but we can control if we're going to be consistent. Because our ego, we're not controlling our ego, and we're allowing our subconscious to wreak havoc and be inconsistent and just start eating up all this time and all this energy. And then by the end of the day, and see, if you do this, it's noon and you've used up, can I fill in? Ooh, how'd that happen? Go back. Did I not close that in? Well, I don't know why that one's not filling. Here, let's do this. There we are. So now you're at noon, and your inconsistency has taken up almost 70% of your emotional energy for the day. You're basically done, and you still have half your day to go, and you're at noon, if that makes sense. So I would theorize, that's why you're being burned out. What's that right there? Let's see if we can. So you're probably doing something that you're having to force yourself to do. And I was as guilty as that as well. I was going to a job that, I was okay at, but I was the job that I was in, I was overqualified for. Then I got a little bit more, then I got a little bit better. Discuss damage, consistency I have experienced. Discuss this damage. I had a strong feeling you had experienced this because we're all kind of drawn together. If you haven't noticed, we had this discussion back in the building. It was like, are we all drawn together in this one place in this little town? Because we had the darkest sense of humor. Awful sense of humor. Wrong decisions. Don't look at them as wrong decisions. Feedback loop. That's okay. So you made a wrong decision. Whoop-de-doo. Now, are you going to make the wrong decision tomorrow? That's what you need. That's your ego lying to you. So I do this all the time. My ego lies I'll remember. I'll do that later. Which is basically, I'll remember to do that later. So I've boiled that down to, I'll remember. No, I won't. And I'll feel bad about it. And then I'll feel guilty about it. So one of the other things that I've added is, okay, if I don't do this right now and I forget, will I be happy or sad? So I've basically boiled it down to, the things that I do, I'm controlling. Yeah, bingo. I'm controlling my happiness. If I do this now, will I be happy? So my wife and my daughter are like, you don't have to go and do that for me. And I go, I'm not trying to be mean, but this has like if I forgot to go do something that they asked me to do, they think I'm going to do that for them. And I'm like, I'm really, really sorry. This has absolutely nothing to do with you. This has to do with me getting it done and making up for a mistake. So not trying to be mean, you're going to benefit from this, but I've got to get this out of my crazy. And I'll just go and do it and get it done and fix it as much as I can. And really try to go, all right, do I want to do this tomorrow? Because what we find is if you really look, there's probably a lot of waste in your day. And that's taken me decades. And I'm still not efficient. I'm mediocre efficient. Not hyper efficient. I'm fairly efficient. I call it stacking. So I try to do multiple things all at the same time. I got to meet somebody. Got to meet somebody on Friday. This guy was hilarious. I'm in a southern state. So he is South Korean by ways of New York. And now he's down in the South. And he is, he was so funny. He was at the cookout that I was very uneasy to go to. But once I was there, I was fine. And that's one of the other things. Okay. Making yourself go and do something you don't want to. Where'd paint go? All right. So let's do this. Oh. And it's also never as bad as you think. It's never as bad as you think it's going to be. So let's go back. Let's talk about Friday and let's talk about the work that I've been doing on the boot camp. So you have to leverage what you have accomplished. I know that sounds weird, but if you've solved other problems, you can probably solve more problems. Let me bring this down here so I have less white. Less white, less light. There, that's better. So, where am I going with this? The boot camp. All right. So I was sitting there and I was going, I can't figure this out. So I had convinced myself, I was looking at this problem and I had convinced myself that I could not figure this out. No, I don't know how to solve this now. Let's move this over here. Let's do this back. So now this is here. I don't know how to do this now or yet. I want everybody in this stream to start adding yet to everything that they say I don't know how to do. You're going to be shocked at how powerful this is. Because then you can summon everything that you've done up until now. You're like, well, wait a second. I solved all this stuff. Well, wait a minute. Is this really any different than all of this? This is where our ego does one of two things. It builds us up and it has us say stuff we shouldn't say. And it also tears us down and says things it shouldn't say. Our ego is never in the middle. It's never here. It lives on the two extremes. And they're both lies. Both of those are lies. We live right here. This is where we are. We may be a little bit there, maybe a little bit here. But our ego says we're down here. Oh, you need to do this, which is completely wrong, and you're going to embarrass yourself, and you're going to feel bad. Or it's going to tell you you're dumb and you can't solve anything, and you're stupid and you can't do anything else down here. And that's a lie too. So both of them. And you're probably right here. You're probably really, really smart, and you're probably very relaxed. But our ego, our subconscious evil twin tells us we're down here. So it gets us to make this mistake because we've done really good, but it gets us moving over here. So then we make a mistake and then we go shoot back way over here and we feel bad, right? All right. So both of these are lies. So don't let your ego says, if I don't know how to do this, slap this yet on here and it's going to put you right in this middle spot. So I know this is really all over the map, and then we can talk more about it. Interesting. I've heard this before. I guess what you're saying. Vinky, how are you? Interesting. And I have said this before, I guess. Yeah, we all have. We have the battle is, are we going to believe ourselves or are we not going to believe ourselves? But why shouldn't we believe ourselves? Because we've solved all these other problems. We have solved these. We've done all this awesome work. But once we hit something new, I mean, it's like this reoccurring record. We come back around. And my last project manager that I had and my boss, they made what I would watch them. They would make mistakes all the time, never slowed them down. Because they didn't have this. They were normal. They were normal. And they did this stuff. So we are abnormal. We can solve some really complex things. But we lie to ourselves and we embarrass ourselves over here on this extreme. Or we lie to ourselves that we can't solve anything and we cut ourselves off at the knees. Of being exact opposite. Yes, that's a great, Vinky. That is a great point. So we live in the two extremes, and I call it I used to call it a window, and you need to narrow the window. You need to close the window down a little bit, and live in here. So I also noticed I would get way too happy, and I get way too sad, and I'd go back and forth, and this is exhausting too. This is extremely exhausting, going back and forth and going back and forth. So I was like, wait a minute, so you have to notice these things and you have to begin to adjust. So I didn't notice them for 40 years. I just did them. I was just in it. And I was like, this is exhausting. I do not like how I feel. So then I started paying more. I was just doing and doing. And I was allowing my subconscious to run amok. And the longer it runs amok, the more powerful it becomes. And where it became very apparent to me is I'm in the middle, and I was watching my mother and my son and they act exactly the same way. So where this began to join, so you have to. Sorry, I thought I heard a door open. Begin to observe is when I would be off from work for a week. It became very apparent. I was off for 5 days, 7 days. I can't remember. And I think I worked that weekend because at one point during my last stint, I had to pick up a part-time job because we got a bunch of bills one year. So I was working 7 days a week. So I had my weekday job and I had my weekend job, and I was just busy all the time. But it really focused me. I got more done in the working 70 hours a week than I was when I was working 40. And it became very, very apparent. But I had to get to that extreme to notice it. So I went back and I started to look. So then I took off a week and I did one thing around the house. I changed the electronics in an overhead light in my wife's closet. That took me all week to do. So then I started to notice my son. So in his junior year of high school, he had so many things going on. No issues. His senior year of high school, he only went to school a half a day. And things started getting pretty bad. Freshman year of college, there was no structure, no accountability, no schedule. Subconscious was running amok. Complete raw freedom. And I guess actually this is what I wanted to show. Brush. It was like this. Because he had a very strict schedule, so his subconscious had zero free time. So then I saw basically my mother doing the same thing, self-employed, so you have no boss. So it's like going off the page. And I mean, all this. Now I go back one more generation. Her dad. This is where the epiphany happened. He was 18 and he went straight into the Army. You know what you're going to do, and he ended up being a colonel in the Air Force at a base at Air National Guard, and he ran 2 bases before he retired. And I was like, all right. So I began to examine what the difference was. Army is extremely consistent. His subconscious had 0 years of running amok. He knew what he was going to do from the second he woke up to the end of the day, and then it was so regimented that by the time he was a colonel, he had people below him, and it was so consistent. And I did not ever know this, so it's called a shadow board. His garage when I was a kid was unbelievable. All the tools over here. It's actually the 5S system. So he had this cork board, and you had all these little tools, and behind it was black. So, and it was all silver tools on top of it. So if one of them missing, you would walk out the garage door, look over, and he knew after taking 1 or 2 steps what was missing off the corkboard. Now, have I employed any of that? No. But am I trying to add more consistency to my day? That's why I try to do these live streams the exact same time every day. Do I hit it? No, but I'm close. I'm trying to remove any inconsistencies. For the people who are here and are joining us, inconsistencies are a poison to our subconscious. Actually, no. Our subconscious is a poison to us. And Inconsistency is energy to our subconscious. So you have got to be on guard and quash any inconsistencies that you have in your day. And the more consistencies you have, the freer. So back to our pie chart, the freer you will have and the more energy you will have for your creativity and anything else you want to do during the day. The inconsistencies and the I don't know what to do and the let's try to do this. So that eats up your emotional energy. All right. So from my view, sir, the recent advancements in social media is also one of the bad things which infiltrated our dopamine levels and cause us to confuse a lot. It's drain on our mental energy. Yeah. But we need to. But do you have to be on it? So be very wary of blaming anything. I mean, if we're saying if I lie to myself and say that I'll do that later or I'll remember, you're definitely you have to take ownership and everything. I mean, I'm even saying that we can't even control our own minds. So if you can do that, and I mean, I've struggled with I'll go ahead and say it. I've struggled with Atomic Habits. Bingo. Atomic Habits is another great book. Small changes. Isn't that the book where a 1% degree turn changes everything? So when you leave, I think the beginning story in that book, Venki, is if you change 1 degree once you leave LAX, it's the difference between ending up in New York and Washington, D.C. So, Anonymous, I know what you're saying, but that is be very wary of that. We're talking about accountability and self-monitoring. 1%. Yep, 1% daily change. So, and the change that they did, I think, with the French cycling team is also in there. Right. So, because also, and then extreme ownership. So be very careful. So here's actually part of my journey. I watched a gentleman that I worked with. Nothing was his fault. So if you extrapolate, I like to live in extremes. So if that's the case, take it all the way out. So if nothing is his fault, that means you're in control of nothing. So that means it really doesn't matter what you do, and everything around you is going to be awful because you have zero control over anything. So nothing is your fault. So flip that around. Everything is your fault. So you can influence everything around you. Now you can't, but it's more empowering than thinking, because then everything is pointless and you're helpless and you're hopeless. Helpless and hopeless, kind of interchangeable. So if you take extreme ownership of everything, and you can have influence. You can't control. Don't think about it as you can't control everything, but you're not helpless. I think I used the example of the quote that I loved hearing. Boiling water hardens an egg and softens a potato. The water is still the same, right? But the type of personality or the choosing your environment or whatever you want to say, but the same water affects 2 different things 2 different ways. So it's very, very important. Don't get hung up on, because you're rationalizing. Rationalizing is and that's what our subconsciouses do. We rationalize and make excuses. Well, I couldn't do that because of this, and I couldn't do that because of this. Well, okay, well, what can you do? Because if you're sitting in a room, and especially if you're going to be asked to do something, well, making excuses is not a solution, right? So I guess we're always here to find a solution for something. So be on the lookout for a solution and not an excuse. Now, there's a thin line between an excuse and a reason. But if there's a reason, there needs to be an excuse, or there needs to be a resolution and a solution behind it pretty quickly, if that makes sense. Spending some time alone and reminding yourself why you started something is also helpful. That's interesting. Okay. I would be concerned. I would be concerned with that, Peaky, about analysis paralysis. I'm a bigger fan of examining what went right and what went wrong, and what you could change. Because, Peaky, if you do that, if you're like me, this is just speaking, and I'm assuming people are here who are like me. If you do that, that turns into inaction, and that is dangerous for us. Where action is vital for us to keep moving, keep swimming. It's what went well, what went bad, what can we do more of that is good, and what can we make less bad. That should be the thinking of what. So, I mean, yes, I know what you're saying. Why am I doing this? But if you're having to give yourself a pep talk, you're still draining your emotional energy. So, but if you're doing and you're having, so micro successes are extremely important. So we haven't talked about that in a while, but a micro success is vital because that fills up your emotional success energy tank. So the two, like my old boss and my old project manager, their success bucket was crazy full. So when they took a ding and they were wrong, crime and punishment, being, solitude cramps the soul and mind. Yes, solitude, but there are some people who cannot. So I know what you're saying. Being alone, but I guess I'm concerned about that because there are some people who don't have that option of not being alone. But I want to drive into, again, what you can control. Control what you can control. You can control. I mean, make a list. I mean, make a to-do list, and at the top of the list, make a to-do list. I mean, Jordan Peterson has a line: lower your expectations just enough where you can get over it. And we were doing that back at the building. We lowered the standards just enough to make everything right above where it was red, because you wanted to have the red things turn green and you wanted the green things to get greener. But if it was so unbelievably unattainable, nobody'd want to try. So you want to lower the standard just enough where you can get over it. And then you're like, well, wait a minute, we did that. What else can we do? And hey, have we been on for... We've been on right on for 2 hours right now. All right. So I know we are all over the place today. Don't know exactly what we're going to talk about tomorrow. I'm hoping to get Airtable. I'm working on this, my DAG, to task out in Airflow, because I was spoiled with Data IQ. But again, I'm terrified of that. But again, it is an application that writes stuff in Python that you click on some buttons. Ooh. Okay, no, that's not new. So I've done much more challenging things. So I look back. So peaky. So what I do is I go, if I've solved all those other things, all this bucket over here looks more like a bag, but I look in this bucket and I go, wait a minute, I did that and I did that and I looked at all these things and I solved that, so I should be able to solve this bucket right here. And then I just start, and it's not going to go well. Then I start again, and it's a feedback loop, and I go, okay, that's awful, and I keep going. What I meant is that a person should spend at least some time alone, because sometimes I get very tired and don't feel like doing anything, and I enjoy. Oh, well then awesome. No. I was concerned. Okay, no, if you like, I completely get it. Good tool, sir. It's drag and drop and low code, no code, almost. It's drag and drop and low code. Was that Air Data IQ? No code, most of the things. Because what I was seeing for Airflow was the Python file that we were given had some pretty big objects in there that I didn't quite get to work through. But all right. And for those of you, I hope you can work on this dbeaver issue, and then go and let's see. Yeah, the playlist, the invoice, and the invoice line. So yeah, you could go and look and see who, and create a SCD of who's ordering stuff in each week of the year. Dataiku, yeah. So have you used that? Yeah, because it was interesting, and I was doing everything. I was doing all of mine in one Python file. I was doing SQL. I was, which is like you do in the DAGs for Airflow. You just drop the SQL inside the Python object, and then you go from there. What I'm working on is the incrementation of the backfill. I'm trying to wrap my head around that, and there's probably a way that we just increment through some sort of array, or the time period, and you go from there. So all right, yeah, you should be able to take the invoice data and the sales data inside dbeaver if you add the sample data, and be able to make a SCD out of that. It'd probably be good practice. What is foo? Is foo? Did I make foo? I don't remember. Does it say when this was created? So here's how I learned how to create tables and everything. Was that I would go look at the DDL, the actual. So well, we can talk more about that later. All right, I promise I'm going to go. I got to keep moving. But thank you everyone for joining today. Glad to have everybody here. I think it was a great talk. I think I talked some about Walmart, but still we got off topic. But I think it was great, and I hope it helped everybody think about some problems and get through some stuff, because that's what we're all here for. So everyone have a great rest of your day, and if it's evening, have a good night. And for those of us who are just getting started, have a great day, and I will see everyone tomorrow. All right, bye everyone.